Who's Who on the battlefield. Hap Arnold, aviation pioneer and the U.S.'s only general of the Air Force, Henry Hap Arnold had no intention of joining the Army. Born on June 25, 1886, and raised in Pennsylvania, young Henry's only desire was to become a Baptist minister. However, when his older brother Thomas defied their father, Henry took his place in the classroom. He passed his brother's military exams and headed off to West Point. He graduated in the class of 1907. Initially, Arnold was posted to the 29th Infantry Division, and together they served in the Philippines for 2 years. Returning home, he served 2.5 years on Governor's Island, New York. It was in June 1911 that the Army transferred Hap to Dayton, Ohio, where he was taught to fly by the Wright Brothers. His training lasted 2 months, and he became one of the military's first pilots. After his training, he became a flight instructor at the Signal Corps Aviation School in College Park, Maryland. Then he was moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where on June 1, 1912, he set the record of flying to altitudes of 6,540 feet. He also set flying records in the New York, Connecticut maneuvers. On October 9, 1912, he was awarded the McKay Trophy for the triangular reconnaissance flight he flew from Washington, D.C. to College Park to Fort Myers, Virginia. Henry married Eleanor Alexander B. Poole on September 10, 1913. They had 5 children: Lois, Henry Jr., William, David, and John, who sadly passed away in June 1923 of appendicitis. B and Hap's 36-year marriage ended with his death in 1950. In late 1912, Arnold was transferred to Fort Riley, Kansas, where he was the first aviator to use a radio to transmit findings from reconnaissance flights. In November 1912, he was assigned to the office of the Chief of the Signal Corps. It was in April 1913 that he was commissioned as a first lieutenant, and in September 1913, Hap was transferred to the 13th Infantry Division, a regiment he stayed with until March 1916. That year, he spent 2 months serving at Madison Barracks, New York, before returning to flight duty in May. As a captain, he worked at the flight school in San Diego before being transferred to Panama in February 1917 to form an air service there. He commanded the service until May 1917. Arnold was recalled to the States just as America was entering World War I. He was transferred to D.C., where in June he was promoted to a major. On August 5, 1917, he was made a full colonel and became the head of the Information Service in the Aviation Division of the Signal Corps. He was named the Assistant Executive Officer of the Office of Military Aeronautics when the branch was formed, and became the Assistant Director in February 1918. Hap was sent to France to inspect American aviation activities in Europe. He returned home in January 1919 and became the Superintendent of Air Service Coronado, California, as well as Air Officer at Presidio in San Francisco. He was briefly demoted to captain in June 1920, but was again promoted to a major in July. In October 1922, he was made a commanding officer of Rowell Field, California, a command he held for the following 2 years. Arnold then graduated the Army Industrial College in 1925. He next became the Chief of the Information Division at the Office of the Chief of the Air Corps. In the fall of that year, Hap testified on behalf of Billy Mitchell at his court-martial. Arnold's next post was the commanding officer of Marshall Field. He left this command upon completing Command and General Staff School in June 1929. He was then assigned as commanding officer to the Air Depot in Fairfield, Ohio, and promoted to a lieutenant colonel in February 1931. He was next assigned duty at Marchfield in California. In the months of July and August 1934, Arnold planned and led 10 Martin B-10 bombers on a record-setting flight from D.C. to Fairbanks, Alaska. He was awarded a second Mackay Trophy in recognition of this achievement. The following February, Hap was promoted to a brigadier general and was made a commanding officer of 1st Wing of General Headquarters at Marchfield. He tirelessly advocated for the development of the B-17 Flying Fortress, as well as the B-24 Liberator. In January 1936, Arnold traveled to Washington to take his position as the assistant to the Chief of the Air Corps. It was 5 years later, on June 30th, 1941, that he was promoted to the Chief of the Army Air Corps. That December, he was promoted to a 3-star general. It was in March 1942 that Arnold became the commanding general of the Army Air Corps. During the rest of the war, he led the entire Army Air Corps. During his tenure, the Air Corps grew to 25 million personnel, and in early 1943, he traveled 35,000 miles through North Africa, the Middle East, India, and China to inspect and inspire the troops. He also attended the famed Casablanca Conference as a military advisor and was promoted to a 4-star general in March 1943. Unfortunately, Hap, already having suffered a lifetime with poor health, had a heart attack in 1945. His doctors attributed the attack to overwork. This led to his retirement from the Air Corps on June 30th, 1946. Having been an advocate for aviation since the onset of his career, Arnold worked tirelessly to facilitate relationships between civilian aviation development and the military. He founded Project RAND in 1946 to assist in this relationship, and lived to see his beloved Air Corps become a branch of the military when the Air Force was formed in 1947. Congress also created Hap the first and only general of the Air Force when he was promoted to a 5-star general. Henry Arnold passed away on January 15, 1950, at home in Sonoma, California, and was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. He was just 63. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Also check out the other episodes of this series. Thanks so much for watching!